Danny, are you at the school?
Yes, ma'am.
Who's all there?
Uh, Myself, Scott Neville, Carolyn Mallett, and Luke Bradisich.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Gooch, I think we're good. Board members, you know how to unmute if you need to speak. I see some of you are muted.
I'm here.
Mr. Gooch, are you good to go?
I am ready.
Okay. If you don't mind, then before we get started, I know we have some visitors with us tonight. I see one of them. I'm just going to welcome all of them if I can. I know Mr. Colby Nichols and Fred Stormer plan to attend from Underwood Law Firm. We have Chris Grammer. I see him. Hello, Chris. He is from Colwell Consulting. And we have Steve Van Dyke from Cummings Westlake and Craig Adair from Open Road Renewables. And I see Craig there as well. So just want to welcome you guys to our new norm, I think, for the entire world. I know lots of people are sick and tired of Zoom meetings, and I hope in June we're not doing this. So before we get started, I just have a statement I need to read, and then we'll turn it over and let you officially start the meeting, Mr. Gooch. So on March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. A notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Although members of the board are not gathered in central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference. We're meeting by use of Zoom software application, which allows two-way communication for members of the public. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion will be unmuted for 5 minutes to speak. If you'd like to provide comments at a future meeting conducted by video conference, please follow the instructions on the meeting notice. All other meeting procedures will adhere to the board adopted procedures to the extent possible. An audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be made available to the public at a later date. This software application allows for 100 people to view and interact at a time. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask your patience as we navigate unprecedented conditions. If you have questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at toma@oag.texas.gov. And that is the statement, Mr. Gooch.
Okay. Tammy, will you lead us in the invocation?
Yes. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for this day. Lord, we just ask that you continue to be with not only our schools, but our nation and our leaders, Lord, through this difficult time, Lord. Lord, we just praise you and thank you for all the blessings that you've provided for us. And Lord, thank you for leading us through this unknown and different time that we are today, Lord. I just ask that you be with us and lead us and guide us tonight as we do this meeting and do it to the best of your will. Forgive us when we fail you, Lord, and these things I ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Harvey.
Okay, we move to item number 3, recognition of visitors, public forum. Mr. Martindale, still just one?
Yes, sir. We just have one person with public comments. And I clicked on the button.
So Alec is signed up to speak on public comment and finance, if I remember correctly.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Pointer, you are unmuted, so the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I hope everybody's doing well. Last month, I pointed out that Iola ISD's public forum rules weren't in compliance with House Bill 2840, and I'm really happy to say that the district has fixed those issues. There was one issue that I agreed to disagree with Jason about, and that was the timing of the public comments. I believe that those comments needed to be held during the agenda item instead of grouping them. And that was based on a statement from the chief of staff of Representative Canales, who wrote the bill. But I've read a opinion of the Attorney General's office that says that having them at the beginning of the meeting is allowed. So, I have no problem admitting when I'm wrong. And Jason, you were right on that one. But I do want to just point out that just because it's allowed does not mean the board can't make a decision to allow the public comments at the beginning of each agenda item. Hearing the public is always really a good thing, and that's step one, and Iola does that. But the next step is making sure that feedback is part of the board's deliberations. Having public comment at the beginning of each agenda item creates a flow of information. It really starts it sets the board up for as close to a conversation with the public as you can have during the meetings. So while I really applaud the district for responding to my concern, I want to urge the board to move beyond that minimum of having it at the beginning and move it to each agenda item, and just show everybody that everybody values transparency. The second issue is that I wanted to talk about was the district's finances. So we all know that things are changing every day, down 500 points one day on the market, up 900 on the next. Oil goes down and up and down and up below zero, and now we're up to, I think, 30 or so. So I know the district's administration and the board are constantly working on and reviewing the budget. I really appreciate that. It's great. My request is very simple, that the public be involved as much as possible. Please let us know when changes are made. Include us in the planning for how the district's going to respond to a potential shortfall of state funding. If we do stuff like that, then any disagreements that are had are going to be focused where they should be, on spending priorities, not people complaining about things not being transparent. And I think everybody agrees that we're doing a good job, or y'all are doing a good job, or starting to do a good job moving past that. And those are recommendations that I have that I think can help get us there. So that's all I really wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Alec.
Thank you, Mr. Pointer.
We'll move to item number 4, consideration of the consent agenda. Mr. Martindale, did you receive any emails with questions?
No, sir, I did not. There weren't any questions regarding the consent agenda. One of the things I wanted to point out, though, you saw statements we had there from TextPool, and those are from March. They had the financial ratings on them of AAA, which is amazing. We did not have March's statement when we put the packet together. We received that today, and because of all the craziness in the financial world that's going on, our text pool still has AAA rating. So I just want to let everyone know that there hasn't been a dip in our text pool investments.
And what was the date of that rating?
The day, I don't have April's statement. I just know that it was
not downgraded. Okay.
It was not downgraded.
No, you would get us. Okay, good deal. Okay, with that, I entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Who is that?
Danny.
Danny makes a motion. I will second. Those in favor, this is going to be hard. Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, and those abstaining. Okay, so the motion should carry 7-0. Number 5, campus and administrative reports.
Yes, sir. As usual, we will allow ladies to go first. So Ms. Sajewski, thank you for being on. I know you don't feel well. I hope you start to feel better. But if you will, share what little we have to share during this crazy time about the elementary campus, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. First of all, I just want to start off by saying just how proud I am of the community coming together with the teachers and the administration and the school board. I don't think I've ever been more proud of our school and our town than I am now. Just seeing how everybody navigated this together, positivity, extending grace, helping each other out. It's just been really nice to see. So it's been a good thing in all of this. So I just want to go ahead and move on. First, I want to apologize if any of my children come running in looking for their mama. Just ignore them. That's what I do. So here are some updates. Teachers have been coming up kind of in waves the last couple weeks. Last week and this week, we kind of scheduled them to where they're not all there at once. They're more spread out, and they have been working to pack up their rooms and get ready for the custodians to come in. Next week, parents are coming to pick up belongings. So our teachers, as they're cleaning up, have kind of had the heartbreaking task of packing up all the students' things, making sure they're ready to go for parents to pick up next week. Also, new student registration has been going on for the last couple weeks, and it's been all online. We have been set up to do that. We've just kind of been, gradually releasing it to be all online, and this kind of forced us to have it 100% online. And I have to say it's going very smoothly. Thank you to Ms. Hurst and Ms. Marks, Ms. Fairbanks, and Ms. Darby for working with Region 6 to kind of get all the bugs out of the system, testing it out on employees and their kids. But I have to say it's going smoothly, and so far so good. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ajewski. Hope you start feeling better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry if I'm a little echoey. I'm over at the elementary, but the high schools had a lot of the impact going on, especially with graduation and different things. So some of our updates that we'll go ahead and mention. Graduation we have finalized will be the June 27th date. We're going to have it outside at the football stadium. We're still working on what the exact time for that will be, whether it'll be morning or afternoon or morning or evening. But we walked it off today, and we think that there'll be enough room at the stadium for everybody in their allotment. Prom, unfortunately, has to be canceled this year. We just feel like with the regulations that the governor is putting on us, not allowing people to congregate inside a closed building, that there's no way to guarantee that will be able to be held in any sort of venue inside, especially with the number of students that we have. Senior trip also has been canceled for this year, unfortunately. But the students work drop off, so that will be today right now from 6 to 7 is the last day they can pick it up today. And then we'll also have a drop off time Wednesday from 10 to 12, I believe. And then the last that students can drop off or submit work this year will be Thursday at 6 p.m. and that will be online only. So we're still getting kind of students' work kind of trickling back in. I have all the high school teachers are making contact phone calls to parents, trying to get all that work in. We're doing everything that we can to make sure that those students are getting their work in and having opportunities to get work turned in late. So we're doing everything we can. The teachers are working really hard trying to make sure that they contact those parents. Our students will be able to start picking their stuff up staggered next week of May 26th to the 29th at the high school. So we've got time kind of broken out in days for different grade levels to come in. We'll keep it to a minimum number of students in the building at a time, and then just let those kids come in. It's a little bit different than the elementary. Generally 2 teachers, whatever, kind of manage 1 student. It's a little bit harder at the high school. They just have a whole different schedule. Some kids are in ag shops, some kids are all over in athletics and things in band. So we will allow those students to come in the building, gather all their things, and then leave, and then we'll do a rotation like that. Senior parade, this is something that some of our teachers, Ms. Bradisich and Ms. Costello and some of the other parents have been working really hard to put together. We have the senior parade, which will be this Friday, May 22nd, starting at 7:30. So all the people that are going to be driving in the parade will be at the Iola Volunteer Fire Department. And I have spoken with him, and he is going to start the parade. And I believe the Grimes County Sheriff Department as well is going to be in the parade. So we look forward to quite a few people turning out for that. We were able to get each one of the seniors that are graduating their own kind of sign, their own picture that we have posted right now on the fence of the football field. Let's see, Thursday before the parade, we're going to put those on little stands and put those in the grass so that the families are going to be able to park right behind it or stand right behind it while the parade is going. So those pictures will move out to the curb closest to the road, and then the families will stand right behind that. Also, some good news that we have at our school. The high school has been named the U.S. News Best High School Award again. So we're very proud of our teachers and our students. They're amazing here at Iola. We're very proud of them. That's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Board, just kind of a quick COVID-19 update from my standpoint. Since our last board meeting, April 18th, I believe it was, our food services have served 551 more meals. That puts us at a total during this time of 1,109 meals that we've served to kids. So I'm very proud of our food service workers, kind of being on the front line and making sure basic needs are met for our kids. I'm very proud of them. Talking about budget that came up earlier already this meeting, I wanted to let you know that Miss Tim and I have a meeting scheduled for Thursday morning with Mr. Steve Pierce from the Service Center. He is our financial forecast representative from the Service Center. We're meeting with him on Thursday morning to look at version 16 of the template. I hope it's still 16 by the time we meet and not 17 by Thursday morning, but that'll give us some idea where we stand, a little more accurate picture of where we stand for next school year. After that meeting, we'll start looking at our calendars so we can come together and have a budget workshop and start planning a little bit more specifically for next year. Another area where we've been affected due to COVID, if you remember, several months ago, we ordered band uniforms, new band uniforms. I believe you saw the email I forwarded you guys from the company that actually we ordered the uniforms from. And it's sad to say that we may not have those by the start of the school year. They are in a state in which the governor shut down all production. The company did reopen, but they reopened to make masks. So I don't know when we may be receiving those new band uniforms. Something we talked about when this came up months ago was maybe some type of shirt or polo shirt for the band kids, especially during the hot months anyway. So we'll explore that avenue and I'll get back to you. I just wanted you to see the unfortunate information or news we got from that company that was supposed to be producing our new band uniforms. We have scheduled our safety committee meeting for Thursday at 5:30. So if you're on that committee, hopefully you received that email today, and we'll be scheduling another Zoom meeting. But wrapping up the school year, one of the requirements we needed to do with our safety committee is present that safety audit that we received earlier in the year due to COVID, and we've put that last safety meeting off for almost 2 months now, but we will squeeze that in this week, and that's at 5:30 this week on Thursday. Then I also want to address one last item with you before we move on to the next agenda item, and that is calendar. You may have seen in the media, in the news, or heard it from people that TEA has recommended we go back and revisit our calendars for the 2020-2021 school year. And that's kind of difficult for us. So one of the recommendations, if you were a district of innovation, you could just adjust your start time and start earlier in the school year. And all this has to do with making up for lost time this year. We know that gaps naturally develop over the summer anyway. And unfortunately, as kids, if we get to start school in August, they will have been out of school for almost 6 months. So unfortunately, those gaps have probably grown a little bit more than they would naturally. So TEA says, well, if you're a district of innovation, you can just adjust your calendar and start even earlier in August. We are a district of innovation, but the way we wrote our policy several years ago, all we did was bump up our teacher and student by 1 week. So in other words, TEA's policy says students can't start before the 4th Monday in August. Well, we wrote our policy that says they can't start before the 3rd Monday in August. So all we did was give ourselves a week. So that kind of limits us there to how early we could start. There is a lot of push for year-round school, which would take a drastic change in our calendar. And then there is House Bill 3 gives you the option to add 30 school days or 30 days at the end of the school year. So in June, and they fund you for half days. So they tell you, we'll fund you for 30 half days, but we recommend 30 full days. That's an option to look at. The only problem is we have done a lot of talking about budget cuts and how our finances are going to suffer a little bit. And the problem with offering those 30 additional days is that we would have to pay for those up front. And what I say by pay for those is pay our teachers for those out of, let's say, fund balance. And then spring of 2022, TA would pay us back. But I don't know what they're going to have to pay us back with if all we're hearing is there's going to be budget cuts. So that would be a little iffy as well. What we've talked about is an administrative team. And I can tell you, just from it being in the news, I had a parent stop me at the track one morning around 5:30 and tell me, I don't want year-round school. So this notion is out there in the community. I wanted to bring it up tonight just so you know that we're addressing it as an administrative team. What our plan is at this point in time is to have a district advisory committee meeting early next week, Monday or Tuesday. In between now and then, we will send out a community survey to get the community's thoughts on this calendar adjustment. We'll take that data to our district advisory committee. And from there, we could possibly edit or revise our district of innovation plan, and so that we could start more than 1 week early. But again, that will go through the district advisory committee. We'll get those recommendations and we'll bring those to the board at the June board meeting. So a lot of districts or superintendents that I've talked to at this point in time say they're not adjusting their calendars at all. What we could do, again, this would come to the board for your approval, is we could change some of our staff development or PD days to instructional days. So we could pick up some days there to try to start closing some of these gaps. But I just wanted to let you know, as an administrative team, as a district, we're looking at these options. We're working on them. We're going to take them to the appropriate committees, and then we'll be bringing it to you, board, for your approval in June. If it is such that people want to make changes to it. Again, it would have to be board approved. So I just wanted to give you a heads up there. If you have community members stopping and asking you about the calendar. And that's all I have for the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. That was a very informative report. A lot of information.
Yes, sir.
We'll move to item number 6, consideration of approval of the local investment policy.
Yes, sir. This is local policy CDA. It is sent to us from TASB, so we don't create this policy. It's sent to us from them. And what we're required to do is review our investment policy once a year. So actually, this is that annual review of our investment policy, and that's what CDA is our investment policy. So it talks about approved investment instruments, investment management, liquidity and maturity, and so forth. You have that policy in your board packet. The only changes I've seen from last year to this year, on page 2 of that policy, custodial funds used to be labeled or titled, if you will, agency funds. On page 3, what is now titled or labeled sellers of investments, last year was just broker and dealers. And again, both these clauses, the wording hasn't changed, just what it was labeled or titled. And then in last year's policy, there was a segment about portfolio reports, and it has been completely deleted from this year's local policy. So again, this comes to us from TASB. I just wanted to point out the changes, and this meets the requirement that we annually review our investment policy, management policy. So I recommend the Board of Trustees approve the local investment policy, CDA local.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I second it.
Okay,
From
motion by Tammy, second by Luke. It's now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll entertain a vote. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Those abstaining say no. Okay, so the vote should be 7-0. We'll move to item number 7. Consideration of approval of high school course catalog and course sequence for endorsement 2020-2021.
Yes, sir. This is, we do this annually, obviously, just so that we have our course catalog for students to start registering for next year. As we get into this, I want to thank Ms. Harris. She has been working very hard to try to put this course catalog together, facing everything else we're facing at this time. I do know that normally she would have gone during the spring and almost visited with our high school kids one-on-one to get their schedules done. But at this time, she's trying to do it all online. So I just wanted to thank you, Ms. Harris, for all your hard work. And I know it's been a struggle. And I did not see, I didn't notice any changes from last year's course catalog to this year. But Ms. Harris, or if there are some, would you mind letting us know what those might be?
Sure. Probably the biggest change we made is we had a teacher that came on with us very last minute in the school year last year. And so he was kind of forced to pick up our technology where we had technology applications. Well, he's staying with us this year, and he wants to turn it more business management. So if you look at page 62 in your packet, that's kind of our new career pathway that we've added this year, which is business management and administration. That's kind of the direction he wants to take it. So of course, this year we're only offering a few of the beginning classes because they kind of have to start with one to open that umbrella to take the other classes underneath it. So that's our biggest change. I did change some of the wording on the dual credit because we had gone through the committee and changed the handbook in the beginning of the year. So this just made it match what was already in the handbook as far as dual credit. Just to let y'all know, we are going to offer dual credit again to sophomores. It was very successful this year. I had all of them pass. A lot of them had high A's in the speech and sociology. So we are going to keep that in place this year. So, the CTE, the career and technology, is moving to programs of study this year. So I worked a lot with this CTE piece with our Region 6 representative, making sure that we are aligned. So that's the way that we're able to get that Perkins money, as long as our sequence is aligned. So she has kind of approved all these with me. We had to make a few tweaks of names, not really what was taught, but just they had changed some names on us. So that was it for that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Harris. If there aren't any questions, board, I'd recommend the Board of Trustees approve the Iola High School course catalog and course sequence for endorsement for 2020-2021.
I'll motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Danny, second by Tammy. It's now open for discussion. Is there any discussion on item number 7? If there's no discussion, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. And say no if you're abstaining. Okay, motion carries 7-0. Item number 8, consideration of approval of textbook adoption under Proclamation 2020.
Again, Ms. Harris, she may unmute herself to help me get through this one as well. If you remember last year, we adopted ELA curriculum for the elementary, I think up through 7th or 8th grade. And this year it was high school time. It was time to adopt high school ELA materials. You see in your packet that the high school ELA teachers are or requesting that we purchase the materials from Houghton, Mifflin, and Harcourt. And Ms. Harris, you may have to speak to, I know that these teachers attended a review of materials at the service center. I'm not sure what else they did, but I do know that those teachers are requesting this material.
They did. They received, of course, inundated by samples by our product. So they got lots of those to look at. And then they spent a whole day at Region 6 looking through the material hands-on. They had a lot of digital components. Of course, we're speaking to 9th through 12th grade. So they do all have a digital piece. Well, the teachers, and I can kind of read what Ms. Smith had wanted to make sure she shared with you guys about this adoption. Her and Ms. Teston are only two. They're our whole department. They went and they were in full agreement that this had the most comprehensive and level appropriate reading selections. They were impressed with the digital platform and the ease of the use for both teachers and students. They liked how the text encourages critical thinking through annotation. They're really big right now trying to get the kids to write about what they're reading as a way to retain it. It had higher level questioning. So they are asking for the consumable textbooks, which allows those kids to actively read and annotate just like they will moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. So I recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of high school ELA materials published by Houghton, Mifflin, and Harcourt. And one last thing with that, that's the same company we ordered the elementary curriculum from, so it is aligned with those lower grade levels.
Yes, it is. And it's 100% TEKS aligned, and it's an eight-year adoption is what it would be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I move we adopt the high school ELA as recommended.
Okay. Motion by Luke,
I second.
second by Miss Mallett. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Anybody abstaining? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Martindale, I know this is going to look a little out of order to some people and not make a lot of sense as we move through the next couple items. Do you want to try to explain why we're adopting certain policies on number 9, engaging a law firm, so on and so forth, before we go to closed session and deliberate?
Yes, sir. So item number 12 is an application that the board will be considering, and that's what we'll go to closed session for. In order to do that, though, we need item number 9, 10, and 11. Item number 9 is local policy CCGB that we have to have in place in order to even consider this application that's being presented to us in item 12. If we were to approve that or adopt that local policy, then item number 10 would be us entering into a contract with a law firm, and in this case, Underwood, so that when we go to closed session to hear this application being presented, they would be there to represent us. They'd be there on behalf of the district to kind of walk us through that and help us ask legal questions. Then item number 11 is the same type situation where we'd be considering entering into a contract with a financial consultant, which in this case would be Colwell Consulting. And again, by doing so, they would enter into closed session with us to help us ask any financial questions we may have about this application or walk us through the financial piece of it. So that's why there's kind of 4 agenda items that are all tied to the very last one in which we'd go to closed session to hear that application presented to the board. Is that clear enough, Mr. Gooch?
Yes, sir. I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and thank you for asking that question. Hopefully I've cleared it up a little bit for the community if you've logged on and you're wondering what all these policies are for. So with that being said, though, the first one here is the local policy we have to have adopted as a district to even consider this type of application or agreement And like I said, that is local policy CCGB concerning economic development application and agreements for appraised value on qualified property under the Texas Economic Development Act, Chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code. And so you see that policy there in your packet. And I would recommend the Board of Trustees to adopt district policy CCGB local as presented, relating to the Texas Economic Development Act, Chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code, and authorize the superintendent to take all action necessary to incorporate this policy into the district's policy manual.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Jason, a second by Danny. It's now open for discussion. Is there any discussion? If no discussion, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Those abstaining, please let me know. Nobody abstained, so it sounds like the motion carried 7-0. Move to item number 10.
Thank
Again,
goodness we approved item number 9, so we can move to 10, 11, and 12.
that's right. Right.
So again, 10 is a contract for your consideration to enter into a contract with a law firm that would help guide us through this process. It's a unique process. Our application that I'm recommending is with Underwood Law Firm. We already use them as our regular legal counsel, and they have a gentleman in their firm that has dealt with these applications in the past. So we feel comfortable with them as a firm. So I recommend the Board of Trustees hire the Underwood Law Firm as special legal counsel to provide professional services relating to the consideration of applications for appraisal value limitation on qualified property, including Blue Jay Solar LLC's application, and to negotiate and draft any resulting agreement for limitation on appraised value on behalf of the district, and authorize the board president to sign the engagement letter with Underwood Law Firm to secure such services.
When would this take effect?
I believe it would take effect, and Fred or Colby, you can help me with this. I believe it would take effect if we decide to move forward with the application.
Okay.
I think it totally depends on how we feel about moving forward with the application. Is that correct, Colby?
Sort of, yeah. So what you're approving right now is to engage us in order to consider the application. And that is completely correct in what Scott is saying, in that once you approve us, you begin that consideration. If you decide not to consider the application, then our agreement's null and void.
And Colby, no fees associated if we decline the application, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So basically a no risk decision.
Right.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Tammy, a second by Luke. It's now open for discussion. Is there any questions or discussion? No questions. Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Did anybody abstain? Okay, the motion carries 7-0. Item number 11, Mr. Martindale, you can elaborate, but again, there's no risk or no fees if we decline the application.
Yes, sir. That is my understanding. So again, this is along the same lines of entering into an agreement with Underwood. We would be entering into an agreement with a financial consultant that would help us through this application process if we so choose to go forward. It is Colwell Consulting. I spent some time talking with Chris Grammer last week. Felt comfortable with what he had to say about the process and their experience with these type things. So I felt comfortable bringing Colwell Consulting to you for your approval. So with that said, I recommend the Board of Trustees retain the firm of Colwell Consulting LLC as school finance consultants to assist with the district in evaluating financial impact on the school district revenue related to Blue Jay Solar LLC's application for appraised value limitation on qualified property, and authorize the board president to sign the engagement letter with Colwell Consulting LLC to secure such services.
So
I'm
moved.
making a motion.
Okay, motion by Danny,
Second.
second by Tammy. Any discussion? Okay, if there's no discussion, entertain a vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, those opposed say no. Did anybody abstain? Okay, the motion carries 7-0. With that, in order for us to consider item number 12, we'll go to closed session under 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. We'll enter into closed session at 7:17 and take a few minutes for Mr. Martindale to move everybody back to the waiting room.
Yes, sir. I'm going to start moving people back to the waiting room. And those of you that I'm putting back in the waiting room, if you so choose to stay there, we'll be back, and I'll allow everyone back into the meeting once we're finished with this item. And those of you that are going into the waiting room with us, such as Colwell and Underwood and oh my goodness, there's a list there. I apologize. If you'll just bear with me, please. This isn't the most convenient thing to do. Trying to names are jumping around on the screen. I apologize. Oops. I may have accidentally just removed someone from the meeting. Okay. participants, 21 participants, and that's what I see on the screen. So we're good to go.
Okay, so we're ready for consideration of item number 12.
Yes, sir. I don't know at this time, is there anything that Mr. Van Dyke or Mr. Adair would like to share?
Yes.
Okay.
Ready for now?
Yes, sir. The floor is
Okay,
yours.
sounds good. My name's Stephen Van Dyke with Cummings Westlake. We are consultants, property tax consultants also, and we help companies kind of navigate the 313 and 312 world. And here we're helping Craig Adair with Open Road Renewables and their Blue Jay Solar project. And as I'm sure you know, Fred and Chris and Colby told you, this is merely just the start. By accepting the application, you are in no way, you know, saying that you are going to accept or that you're signing up for anything. You have plenty of time to go ahead and try and get as much information and to make sure it's the right move. All expenses are paid by the client. And I'll kind of turn it over to Craig to let him do a quick synopsis of the project, and we'll come back to that. You there, Craig?
I am. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, first of all, many thanks to Scott and to the board for consideration here. I just want to quickly introduce myself, and I'm very sorry that we can't do this in person. It's kind of strange to be starting this process. Normally, we would, of course, love to be able to meet the board in person, but like Stephen said, my name is Craig Adair, and I am a Senior Development Manager at Open Road Renewables. And we are an Austin-based utility-scale solar project developer, which is just a long way of saying we put together the large-scale solar projects like you're starting to see around the state. We are a small company based in Austin, but have a lot of experience in Texas and beyond putting together large-scale renewable energy facilities, and look forward to working with the board as we go through this process over the next few months, assuming you decide to accept the application and take a look at this, what I think is an exciting opportunity for the district. We are a privately funded company. Our principal investor is a company called MAP Energy, based out of California, who got their start in the natural gas business and branched out into renewables about a decade ago. And we've worked with them for a long time and have formed a very successful partnership. In terms of this project, we've been working in Grimes County now for a couple of years and have now put together a group of about 16 landowners who are participating in this proposed project. It's still what I would call an early to mid-stage development project where after working with landowners, we have about 2,500 acres under lease for folks that would like to participate in the project. If all goes as planned, that entire area would not have solar panels on it. That area would probably be closer to 1,700 acres or so, about 2/3 of the total. At the end of the solar project, which is considered to be about a 35 or 40-year lifespan for a facility like this, all the equipment will be removed from the surface and the land goes right back to ranching or farming or whatever the landowner chooses. The project that we're looking out here is up to 210 megawatts in size. That's a fairly standard project size in Texas, 150 to 200 megawatts. And so that's what we're looking at doing out here. The power would go into the substation that you've probably seen. It's on County Road 127, just south of FM 39 there, a little bit southeast of Iola. You'll see there's a map of all this in the application, but it's just a few miles south of Iola there. If all goes well, we're targeting the spring of 2022 for when the project would be up and running. Building a project like this is a 9 to 12 month process. So that would, if all goes well, would put us hitting operations in the spring of 2022, assuming you decide to work with us on this appraised value limitation. So quickly, I put a general map of where this proposed project is in the slides here. And in terms of the benefits to the community, a project like this creates a lot of jobs during that 12-month construction time. A project like this will probably create about 200 plus full-time equivalent construction jobs. Once the project is up and running, as you may have seen at the project over there near BDI's, which is a similar and just smaller scale version of what this would be. Once the project's up and running, there's not a lot of activity. It subsides substantially, and there would only be a handful of folks that are doing the maintenance of the site and repair work. We would be committing to create one local full-time job under this agreement. It's a substantial investment. A 210 megawatt project, we'd be looking at about $170 million investment for the facility. Once the project is up and running, once again, the investment subsides, and by our estimates, it would be about a $2 million per year annual investment over the life of the project. And that's in the form of payments to the participating landowners and maintenance work, repair work, cutting the grass, washing the panels occasionally if needed. You know, a project like this, of this size, would generate enough power for about 40,000 homes in Texas. So it's a fairly extensive project in that sense. I'll let Stephen go into the kind of high levels of the way the agreement works, and I assume you talked about this with your attorney and with Chris there in the session, but we've done a number of these in Texas, and in my experience, school districts have always ended up deciding that it was kind of a no-lose proposition for the school district, mainly because of direct payments under the agreement, which is kind of a sharing of the tax savings that my company or the project owner would realize, as well as the expanded tax base for INS tax purposes. The agreement will have a hold harmless provision in it that ensures the school district cannot go down in M&O revenue as a result of signing the agreement. So those are kind of the high level reasons why the school districts where we've done projects in the past in Texas have always ended up deciding that it was something that they wanted to do. So appreciate your consideration. One of the other things that we'd be happy to work with the district on are kind of unique educational opportunities for having a high-tech clean energy facility like this in the area, and whether that's in the form of tours of the facility for students in your school, or math and science applications. Those are the kind of things that to me are fun about having a facility like this in the area. So I'll stop there, and if anybody has questions for me about Open Road or about the project, I'm happy to answer them now. But as Stephen mentioned, this will be a several months long process if you decide to consider the application, and I will always be available for folks, board members, and for Scott if you have questions along the way.
Thank you, Craig. Board members, real quick as well, what you found next to your computers, or you had it emailed to you before the meeting, this handout here covers everything that Craig just spoke about. That information's in here. If you heard something that you wanted to follow up on, it's in that handout. And if you don't find it in that handout, let me know, and I can always get in touch with Craig to ask questions for you. Thank you, Craig.
Mr. Adair, I got a question for you.
Yes,
You said you've done several. Can you give us several projects like this in Texas? Can you tell us about where they would be at and where they're located at? Anything like that?
Yeah. So the projects that folks at my company developed that are now up and running are actually all wind projects. So most of the folks at Open Road worked together at one of two previous companies. That company was called Pioneer Green Energy. And at Pioneer Green, we developed mostly large-scale wind projects. We did some solar work. And since we founded Open Road 4 years ago, we've been doing exclusively solar work. So the projects that are up and running in Texas are large-scale wind projects. And well, let's see, some of the ones that I was personally involved with was the Green Pastures Project, which is mostly in Baylor County, up near Wichita Falls. A portion of it's in Knox County as well. We have a few projects that are closer to Grimes County over in Comanche and Mills County. The Logan's Gap Wind Project in Comanche County, it has been operational for several years now. The Flat Top Wind Project is mostly in Mills County. So, and we worked with school districts in each of those counties on similar agreements to this one, the Appraised Value Limitations Agreement. There were several others, and I could get you a full list if you would like. The solar projects that we developed that are up and running are at this point all in other states. We have several projects up and running in California and some that we did in Maryland. We've got one that's currently under construction, about the same size in Ohio. So I'd be happy to get you more information on those if you're interested.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Board members, do you guys have any other questions for Mr. Van Dyke or for Mr. Adair?
I do not.
Okay.
Mr. Adair, you mentioned one thing, and Luke, you actually asked me this question this weekend. Educational. Well, the tours, I'd heard the first deal, but what about you mentioned something else, math and science classes possibly?
Yeah, That's really just an opportunity that if your math or science teachers were interested in and doing, say, real life applications and how solar energy works, how the sun's energy is converted into electricity, for example. That's the kind of thing where my company or whoever is operating the facility would be happy to work with the teacher to come up with applications so that students can see how that works and then go out and see it in person. So it's kind of up to the creativity of the teacher and of us to do something that would be of interest. And they're fairly high-tech facilities with a lot of different things going on, but the basics of solar energy has been around for decades. And I think it's the kind of thing that, I don't know, when I was a kid, my dad got me a solar powered calculator, and I got fascinated by how it worked and would love to have had the opportunity to see panels in operation and how they're working. And so we would be happy to work with your teachers on that.
Okay, thank you.
That was my question, as far as could there be even more education towards these kids, teaching them about energy, how it began and came to this point with solar. And I guess you answered it to a point. The teacher would need to kind of initiate that and help, or maybe work with y'all to get that information.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of different ways that would be done, but we would certainly be happy to work with Scott or with individual teachers and kind of come up with something that would be of interest. And I've personally gone and done presentations to school districts when some of their students were having, say, a job fair and were interested in what kind of opportunities there were to work in the industry. And that's another aspect of ways that we would enjoy being part of the community, but would enjoy working with teachers on kind of curriculum-based math and science applications as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be very helpful.
Mr. Gooch, did you have another question?
I did not.
Okay. Well, Stephen and Craig, thank you so much for that information. Again, board members, you have the handout there that covers the information Craig shared with you. If you have any other questions, though, obviously we can get in touch with Craig or Stephen. But if there's no other questions, it's recommended that the Board of Trustees accept for consideration Blue Jay Solar LLC's application for an appraised value limitation on qualified property. Set an application fee of $80,000. Authorize the superintendent to review the application, and upon a determination that such application is complete, that it be submitted to the comptroller as set out in Chapter 313 of the Texas Tax Code.
I move we accept the consideration of the application.
Second.
Okay, a motion by Luke. We had 2 seconds there, sounding like maybe Danny. Those in favor say, or it's open for discussion. Any discussion? Okay, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Did anybody abstain? Okay, motion carries 7-0. We move to item number 13. If you gentlemen would like to stay with us, you are welcome, but if not, we understand if you disconnect.
Sounds good. I have one quick question. Fred or Colby, my question about allowing the superintendent to be able to extend the timeline for the agreement. Does that need to be brought up now during the meeting?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by extend the agreement?
The timeline, we only have a certain amount of time to have the agreement heard by the school board and to allow the superintendent to be able to extend that timeline without having to have a board present.
I think we'll be okay. Mr. Martindale will be able to sign the application, accept it for consideration. And our goal would be to be able to get everything done within the time limits. But if we needed to, we could certainly come back and have the board extend it at a later date. but I'd be in favor of trying to meet those time limits right now. I think we can do it.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Mr. Martindale?
Yes.
I think since the board had approved that motion, you can sign that application on that last page above with the applicant signed. And the comptroller is allowing us to do this all electronically, so you can email that back to me. We'll work with Mr. Van Dyke to make some of the final changes to that application, and we will get it submitted just as quickly as we can electronically to Austin.
Okay. Thank you, Fred. I'll send that to you tonight or first thing in the morning, probably tonight.
That would be great. Tonight or tomorrow, we're all good.
All right. Thank you.
We appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gooch, did we move to item 13?
We did. Floor is yours.
Really nothing there for you guys' approval. What I wanted to be upfront and transparent about is that last month on the list of teacher contracts that Ms. Sajewski submitted, she had accidentally left off one teacher. Put in the board packet the email Ms. Sajewski sent me concerning that teacher, Ms. Kara Shive. In her email, Ms. Sajewski just asked if we could extend her a contract like we did all the other teachers on that list. I used the authority that you guys granted me, and I've simply had a contract drawn up for Ms. Shive, but I wanted to be upfront and transparent about how that all took place.
Mr. Martindale, that this is her second year, be her second year with us.
Yes, sir. This will be her second year with us.
So she's still on probationary or not? I don't.
Going to be on that list or in that category of 5 of 8, has taught 5 of the last 8 years. So her contract would go to term.
Okay. Good.
Sir, I'm sorry I didn't mention that, but I just wanted to be, like I said, up front about what was taking place with that teacher in that contract and what had happened. We haven't received any new resignations. And
sir, are you asking for a motion on 13? I know we don't, it's not required, but
we can, that's fine with me. I just asked that the board approve Kara Shive teaching contract for 2020-2021 school year.
Make a motion.
Second.
okay. And who seconded it? It was a male voice. Luke. Okay. Motion by Danny, second by Luke. Open for discussion. Any discussion? If there's no discussion, those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Anybody abstain? Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you.
I think that's it. One more motion.
So moved to adjourn.
Motion by Tammy. I'll second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Can't abstain on that one. Okay. Thank y'all guys.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
All right. Bye.